Hello, hello, possums. Yes, it is I, the conspicuous moo. And today I'd like to talk about something that's, been crossing my mind recently, which is, of course, the impending arrival, well, not that impending, but anyway, Oceanic Servers for Final Fantasy XIV. Now, as is a natural consequence when, you are an Oceanic player and there isn't an actual Oceanic server, you do tend to congregate on the one that's most convenient to you. And of course, the whole point of this is so that we can all interact during our normal times, because it would be rather frustrating otherwise. It's sort of the rest of your guild are all getting together, but you have to be up at 3 o'clock in the morning to take part. And in this respect, Final Fantasy XIV is no different. On the Japanese data center, particularly on Elemental, there are a couple of servers which have quite a high proportion of either Oceanic or Southeast Asian players. Now, the one I'm on, Tonbri, I went on Tonbri for exactly this reason. I wanted to be where the majority of, the Australians and Kiwis were. So yeah, Tonbri has quite a large population, probably the biggest in the data center at the moment, and Kujata is also frequently mentioned as having quite an Oceanic presence. Time-wise, Japanese servers are actually quite convenient because Sydney time is at the moment 2 hours ahead of Japanese time. So it does mean that people are going to be on around about the same time that we are. Now, when I'm talking about Oceanic, I'm not really talking just about, Australians and Kiwis, which is the most obvious ones, but, there are another huge mix of nationalities in and around the Southeast Asia area that also play an awful lot on these servers. I, for one, noticed a lot of Singaporeans and Indonesians on Tonbri, and, they might be interested in going to an Oceanic data center as well, just because of the distances involved. And hooray hooray, on May the 15th of this year, Oceanic servers were officially announced. They were going to be a thing in Final Fantasy XIV, and lots of Oceanic people rejoiced. Now, initially they were going to be up in time for the launch of Endwalker, but there have been a few delays, and, they are completely unavoidable ones as well. There's not much Square Enix could have done about this, so they're going to be out for patch 6.1 in Endwalker. So when is that likely to be? Well, if you go by the patch cadences of previous expansions, 3 to 4 months, so you'd be looking somewhere towards the end of February, end of March of next year before you would be getting 6.1 and the Oceanic servers that come with those. The reason for the delays, of course, is the well-publicised semiconductor shortage that is going on around the world. It's not particularly easy to get hold of infrastructure right now. Also, one of the main problems is that, if there is going to be an Oceanic data center, it's going to be likely to be in Sydney, where the World of Warcraft centers are. And, Sydney, if you don't know, has been locked down for quite a large period of time due to some sort of pandemic that's going on. So, they are just about to start transitioning out of that because they've increased their vaccination levels, and there have been plans announced by the Australian government that they're going to start opening the international borders as well. So that's fabulous, because one of the main problems that Square Enix had was even getting into the country in the first place to implement this. So yes, by all means. We have a lot of Australians overseas that need to come in, so yes, they are a priority, but if you could sneak in a couple of Square Enix technicians and quality assurance people, that'd be great too. So what will be the major differences in moving to an Oceanic server if you're an Oceanic player? Well, the most obvious one is lag. Now, the lag monster will follow you around. I mean, back in the days when we were on NA servers and World of Warcraft and there weren't any Oceanic servers, you got, if you were very lucky, something a little over 300 milliseconds ping. Now, when we went to the Oceanic data centers and they installed them and we all got very excited, we had 50 milliseconds. So, that's a considerable difference in lagging. Now, I've tested my ping. You can't actually do this in game. You have to basically ping the Elemental data center to see what kind of response you get. I get around about 150 milliseconds at the moment from where I am. That's not too bad. It's certainly more than sufficient for what I need to be doing. Because I'm a complete scrub, I'm not doing anything end-game, I'm still leveling, but, I would understand that, if you were doing trials and raids and in-game PvP and all the rest of it, then, that's probably not a great ping to be having, but it actually was a lot faster than I thought it was going to be. Second one, of course, which is an absolute doozy, is housing. Now, I don't think it's a really big secret that, you know, Final Fantasy XIV has a bit of a real estate issue. They are, you know, going into various many ways in order to address this, but there usually isn't a lot of space available for people who want to settle down, start raising a couple of pups. Now, Ishgard is going to get its own housing location in Endwalker, but that's not coming until patch 6.1, so there's still going to be a wait, but at least that will relieve some of the congestion on pretty much every server in Final Fantasy XIV when it comes to housing space. But on a fresh server, of course, you're going to have, you know, 4 entirely empty housing locations to start with, and then another one in Ishgard in 6.1. So there's going to be a lot of people's best shot at staking a claim. So if you're really into your housing in Final Fantasy XIV and you're in the Oceanic area, this might be an excellent time to do it. Now, I would expect that they will delay the release of housing plots, and it's not going to become a first come, first served kind of basis. I think they will probably wait a little bit before releasing the plots of land that you'll be able to buy, and that just seems perfectly fair for everyone who needs to come across. Now, the other thing that was announced on May the 15th was the data center travel system. Now, this is going to be an ability where you can basically sort of just zip around to another world and do Party Finder or go on hunts with your friends. They have mentioned that it's not supposed to impact the economy at all, which is fantastic, and I hope that includes the housing as well. Though I can't really be too protective about the housing, you know, being an Oceanic player on a Japanese server. Although I don't have any housing at all, I'm very poor indeed. Another thing you might want to consider if you want to transfer to Oceanic is, of course, there are a few bonuses currently in place, according to Lodestone anyway, for people who are transferring to a new world. Homeworld transfer service free is always free of charge, generally speaking, and you usually get a gift of 10 gold chocobo feathers, so that's good for, you know, rare mounts, other special rewards, and you will be reimbursed, you know, if you do have any housing, from where you're coming from, then you will be reimbursed in full for, you know, the entire estate. And I think it's 3 million gil compensation for all of the non-transferable furnishings, and if you have an apartment, you will get reimbursed for the cost of the apartment, and I think 500,000 gil for the non-recoverable furnishings. So it's much more likely to be free transfers than to be, you know, a couple of servers in the Japanese data centers that are going to be sort of ripped out and then plonked into Sydney, because that would be fantastically unfair on all the Japanese players to start with. But you know, when you look at the spread of the population in the Japanese data centers at the moment, from the information I was able to gather, it is pretty balanced across the board. It's between 40 and 50,000 players per server, per realm, with about between 6 and 8,000 actually active. Now, the real standout one there is, of course, Tonbury, which is got a population of 77k with about 12k active. And, you know, that's kind of understandable because there's a lot of Oceanic and Southeast Asian players on this server. It has to be said, though, that, you know, even, you know, despite it being quite a full server to start with, I'm not really having any major logging in issues. It doesn't usually take more than a couple of minutes to get in, even at prime time. But, you know, are these bonuses incentive enough for you to basically uproot yourself and start on a fresh Oceanic server? I mean, you know, you have to leave your free company, you have to shut down all your banks, you're going to have to relinquish your housing. There's a lot of sacrifices you'd have to make in order to get, you know, these bonuses, the better ping, and, you know, the possibility of a fresh housing plot, but it's by no means guaranteed. A lot of my free company are, you know, contemplating having an Oceanic guild equivalent. But the vast majority of them are going to stay on Tonbury because, you know, that's all they know. They've made friends here, they are known in the community, they've run statics with people, they've got their own housing, they're pretty much entrenched in the economy, they've got everything sorted where they are, so there's not really much incentive for them to just uproot and move across. We also have quite a large amount of Japanese players in our free company, so, you know, we've also have to take that into account, and the auto-translate system is fantastic. We managed to communicate quite well. I get that the idea of a fresh start on a new server is you know, it's quite appealing to a lot of players, but there will be a lot of players who won't want to leave the comfort blanket of the server that they've been on for however long it's been. So it will be interesting to see how many servers they start with. I mean, if you were to shave off, you know, say that Tonbury is just going to be 40k from now on, and that means you'd have 37,000 or so. which is enough for one server in Oceanic. I would guess they would go with 2 or maybe 3 to start with, but Square Enix have probably got the numbers on this. I mean, they wouldn't be doing it unless there was some kind of, financial incentive. I mean, I know they want to make the playing experience better, but, at the same time, there's got to be a little bit of financial clout behind it too. But for me personally at the moment, issues like lag, minor. Housing, can't afford it, couldn't afford it even if there was any housing plots available. So, stuff like that doesn't really affect me because, at the moment I'm still leveling. So, I'm nowhere near endgame. I just, I'm trying to level in time for Endwalker. So I'm not going to be pushing harder content until much later. But, when that time does come, I'm probably going to be very interested in raids and trials and PvP even though, I suck at all 3 of those, but I'm sure I'll find someone who will take me. I do like having a crack at that, and 150 millisecond ping, when you just don't get that ad loquium off in time, that's going to hurt. So, I might actually consider it, but at the moment I'm not decided, and with it not launching until 6.1, so early next year, I've got plenty of time to think about it as well. But, what about you? I mean, are you excited for an Oceanic server? I mean, have you already decided you're going to transfer over? Are you going to stay where you are? Should the servers have OCE references like, echidna or wombat, platypus, kangaroo? Yeah, probably not. But, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, at the moment we don't have a lot of very, very firm information. I'm sure we'll get more of that, once we get over the Endwalker launch and they start to implement all of the features that have been delayed because of the huge server. These sprouts have just come out of nowhere and are clogging up the servers something fierce. I'm sure there are a lot of NA and JP data center players who wouldn't be terribly disappointed if all the Oceanics just shot down to their own place in Sydney. So, yeah, we'll alleviate some of the pressure anyway. Let me know what you think about it all. I will be back relatively soon, but until then, I am the Conspicuous Moo, and a very, very good evening to you.